Wrath and anger are hateful things, yet the sinner hugs them tight. I don't know about you. I think one of the hardest things in the gospel is when Jesus says, unless you forgive someone from your heart, so our Father in heaven will also not forgive from his heart. He also alludes to purgatory in the gospel today. How you'll be sent to the torture until you pay back that which you held back, which was freely given to you, but you weren't free to give it to others. I want to make it a little more personal for myself as a way to instruct. And of course, this works sometimes and it doesn't work other times, because we know when we get hurt by someone how we feel. You know, whether it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whether it's a husband or wife, or if it's our parents or our children or people we care about, our friends. When they say unkind things, when they say things to us, act in certain ways, it's really easy for us to hold the grudge because we get comfortable. We hug it tight. We feel better sometimes being angry with them than we do letting it go, because it's difficult to let it go. Unlike God, who forgives and forgets, we might be able to forgive, but we can't always forget. And because we can't always forget, we can't always let it go all the way. And because we can't let it go all the way, it really holds us down. So when we have a vengeful thought or hatred towards someone or severe anger towards someone because of what they've done to us, and we don't learn how to let it go, it's going to eat us alive. And we have to let it go. We really do. We have to do everything we can to strive and try to get it done. The help that can come from counseling, the help that can come from spiritual direction, help from confession, going to your priest, whatever it is, these things are important then as means by which we can heal these things in our life. My father was a good man. Unfortunately, he was also subject to severe drinking, and because he was an alcoholic, his darker side came out a lot. When he wasn't drinking, he was extremely fun to be around. When he drank, he was physically and verbally abusive. And because he was that way, not only did it hurt the physical parts and the things that he said, there was one time when he said to me that if I ever became a priest, I should never consider myself a son of his. I would think of all the things that he had done, all the physical abuse, all the other verbal things over the years while he was alive. He's been long past. That was probably the hardest thing to hear, because I really knew that I was supposed to be a priest. And because he had such a hate-love relationship with the church, it was easy to attack me instead of the church because of the vocation that I wanted to pursue. And I really resented it. And of course, in my high school years, I really acted out. And anyone who was in any position of authority, of course, that hasn't changed that much more since I've gotten older and wiser and more prudent, but anyone who was in a position of authority or responsibility, it was really difficult for me to accept their judgment towards me or their responsibility towards me. And so I rebelled. And I spoke back, and I said things that were unkind as well. And I let the anger that was posed on me to be something in part of my life. And it really did eat me alive. It did cause me to be darker than lighter. And it allowed the anger within me to be such that I couldn't accept love from other people the way I needed to accept that love. Because I held on to something my father said instead of letting it go, which was not easy to do. At least not at that point. When I turned 16, I heard the story of St. Maria Goretti, and her relic is right over here. And Maria Goretti was 12 years old when she died. And she had dedicated her life to perpetual virginity for the days that she was going to live. And she wanted to be religious, but whatever the Lord had in store for us, she didn't want to get married. And I remember reading the story about Maria Goretti that because she wanted to be a virgin her whole life, she would meet a worker, a farmhand there at her home, who would attack her and hurt her and because she would not give in to his advances. And because she would not give in to him, every time her mother left, he would try something with her. And it got to a point where she had to say, no, my body, my life is for Jesus Christ, and I will not let anyone have it. He got so incensed by that he stabbed her to death. The doctor was called. She was dying in her bed. And from her deathbed, she forgave the man for what he had done to her. And I found that amazing. But the story doesn't end there. He does get arrested, and of course he goes to jail, I think, for like 25 years. And when he is in jail, on the day she dies, it was like the next day, he's in jail. She appears to him with a bouquet of flowers and lets him know that she has forgiven him and that he's forgiven by the Lord. And I thought, wow, that's really extraordinary. And then after he had been released from prison after 25 years, he sought out his mother to seek her forgiveness. And he had been tremendously in pain, spiritually and mentally, those whole 25 years because of what he had done. And when the door opened, his mother saw him, knew exactly who he was. She immediately forgave him. And then she invited him to come to the canonization of her daughter Maria. In the first time in the history of the church, in almost 2,000 years, never has someone who has killed a future saint been at their canonization. And not only that, but with the mother. And it hit me really hard. And I was seeing a priest counselor and trying to work these things out because I was told by authorities in the seminary, you need to kind of get this stuff under some control. And they were right. I didn't like to hear it, of course, but they were right. And I remember that story of Maria Goretti. And I thought, my goodness sakes, if a 12-year-old can figure it out, why can't a 16-year-old? And then why can't an older person? Why do we hang on to these things so much? Why do we let the things that people say to us hurt us so much that it develops rage and anger and keeps going and going and going, and all it's doing is eating us alive? It's not doing us any good. And like it says in the first reading today, we kind of cling to it, huh? We hug it tight. But we're the first ones to fall to our knees to ask God's forgiveness when we sin or do something wrong. But we're the last ones sometimes to forgive somebody else who does us wrong. And the Lord makes it really clear that unless we can forgive from our heart, that is to let it go, to give it over to Him. It's just going to keep eating at us. I don't know how many times I've heard people say to me, in the confessional, in counseling, just on the side, when they meet you and find out you're a priest. I can't go to church anymore. I'm so mad at this thing or that thing, this person or that situation. And I say to myself, just go to confession. Go talk to your priest. Come back to Mass, receive the sacrament, receive the body and blood and soul and divinity of our Savior Jesus Christ. It'll bring healing to you. You've got to give it to Jesus and let Him take it. But sometimes we do feel pretty comfortable when we get mad at somebody, because it doesn't require any work, except it really does. It zaps us of all our spiritual energy. And it separates us from God. And we get dark. And then we say to ourselves, how come things happen to me all the time? How come it's always so bad things are happening to me all the time? Have you ever thought that you're the one who opened the door to these darknesses? That you're the one with the key? That you're the only one who can unlock your heart and let God heal it? Nobody has any power over you. Only you do. And only one person can heal you totally. You embracing the Savior, who wishes to heal where we are hurt, to make whole where we're divided, to overcome where we have fallen into the pit. So if there's someone in your life, pray to Maria Goretti for prudence, for wisdom, for common sense, and to look into the mirror and say, you know what? My hating my family member, my anger, my rage, it's not making the world better. In fact, it's making me feel worse. And so pray to Maria Goretti that she might intercede for us and send to us that same kind of flowery bouquet that guaranteed a man who had stabbed her to death the forgiveness of God because she dared to forgive from her heart.